The biggest fleet in the galaxy cruised through space like a school of metal fish. At the center, the massive command ship, Eternal Glory, led 50 smaller but still huge warships. This was the first contact fleet of the Galactic Empire, and they had never failed to bring a new species under their control. On the bridge of the command ship, Emperor Krav stood tall, his 6 limbs perfectly still as he gazed at the viewscreen. His gray skin reflected the blue light of the ship's controls, and his 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of anticipation among his species. "Sensors have confirmed your greatness," reported Commander Lox. 3 vessels approaching from the 3rd planet. They appear to be primitive, only basic metal construction, no energy shields we can detect. Emperor Krav made a clicking sound with his mouthparts. This was always his favorite moment, seeing the primitive spacecraft of a species encountering galactic civilization for the first time. "Prepare the welcome message," he ordered. "Standard format. Introduction. Demonstration of power. Terms of submission." As his crew hurried to obey, Krav reviewed what little they knew about these humans. Their planet was mostly water, with moderate technology detected on the surface. Their ships used simple chemical rockets, nothing like the gravity drives of the Empire. This would be an easy conquest. "Message ready, Your Greatness," announced the communications officer. "Send it," Krav ordered, "and prepare the light show. Let's give them something to remember." The Imperial fleet arranged itself in the ceremonial crescent of dominance, a formation designed to display their overwhelming power. At a signal, each ship activated its exterior lights, creating a dazzling display visible from the planet's surface. "The humans are responding," the communications officer said with surprise. "They're requesting visual communication." Krav flicked 2 of his limbs dismissively. Primitive species often wish to see their new masters grant their request. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The creature had only 2 eyes, pinkish-brown skin, and fur on the top of its head. It wore a simple blue uniform with small symbols on the shoulders. "Greetings, Imperial Fleet," the human said in perfect galactic standard, which shocked everyone on the bridge. "I'm Captain Maria Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. Welcome to our solar system." Emperor Krav recovered quickly. These humans must have intercepted previous Imperial communications and decoded the language. Impressive, but ultimately meaningless. "Greetings, Captain Chen," he replied. "I am Emperor Krav of the Galactic Empire, ruler of 10,000 worlds. Your species has been granted the privilege of joining our civilization. Prepare your leaders to discuss the terms of your world's integration." The human's face showed no fear. Instead, the corners of its mouth turned upward slightly. "That's very kind of you, Emperor," Captain Chen replied. "But I'm afraid we're not interested in being integrated into your empire." Silence fell across the Imperial bridge. No species had ever refused integration. It simply wasn't done. "Perhaps you misunderstand," Krav said, his voice hardening. "This is not an invitation. It is the natural order of the galaxy. Primitive species join the Empire and benefit from our advanced civilization." The human's mouth curved upward even more. "I understand perfectly, Emperor, but you seem to be operating under a misconception about our level of technology." Commander Lox leaned toward Krav. "They're stalling, Your Greatness. Shall I prepare a demonstration of our weapons?" Krav nodded. "Target their moon. Low power, just enough to create a visible impact." As the orders were relayed, Captain Chen continued speaking. "Before you do anything hasty, Emperor, I suggest you scan our vessels more carefully. Your initial assessment was incomplete. Weapons locked on their moon, Your Greatness," reported the weapons officer. "Fire," Krav ordered calmly. A beam of energy shot from the command ship toward the human's moon. It would create a crater visible from the planet, a traditional first demonstration of Imperial power. But something strange happened. The beam seemed to bend around one of the human ships, missing the moon entirely. "What happened?" Krav demanded. The sensors officer worked frantically at his station. The human vessel generated some kind of deflection field. It redirected our energy beam. Impossible, Krav stated. Their ship showed no signs of such technology. On the screen, Captain Chen's expression hadn't changed. As I was saying, Emperor, your assessment was incomplete. We keep most of our technology. Understated. Scan those ships again, Krav ordered. The sensors officer complied, but his expression showed confusion. Your Greatness, I'm getting different readings now. These can't be the same ships we scanned earlier. As they watched, the surface of the human vessels seemed to shimmer and panels slid away, revealing advanced technology beneath. What you initially scanned was our diplomatic shell, Captain Chen explained. A simple covering that makes us appear less advanced. We find it leads to more honest first interactions. Krav felt the situation slipping from his control. Even with hidden technology, 3 ships cannot stand against an Imperial fleet. At that moment, the sensors officer cried out in alarm. Your Greatness, I'm detecting energy signatures appearing throughout the system. Hundreds of them. The view screen shifted to show space around them. Where there had been only 3 human ships before, now hundreds were appearing, seemingly from nowhere. We've been observing your empire for some time, Emperor Krav, Captain Chen said. Your conquest of the Zentari system was particularly interesting to study, but we prefer to remain independent. The humans had been watching them, studying their tactics. Krav felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries, uncertainty. How did your ships avoid detection? He demanded. Phase shifting. Chen replied as if explaining something simple. Your sensors can only detect objects that exist fully in your phase of reality. Commander Lox whispered urgently. Your Greatness, their weapons systems are beyond our current understanding. The energy readings suggest capabilities we've only theorized about. For the first time in the Empire's 5,000-year history, its fleet faced a species more technologically advanced than itself. The revelation was shocking. Perhaps, Captain Chen suggested, we should discuss cooperation rather than integration. As equals, of course. As Emperor Krav struggled with this unprecedented situation, he noticed something disturbing. The human captain was making an unusual sound, a rhythmic, breathy noise. With a shock, he realized the human was laughing. The most powerful fleet in the galaxy had arrived to conquer, and the humans just chuckled. Emperor Krav paced the command deck of the Eternal Glory, his 6 limbs moving in perfect rhythm. It had been 1 day since the shocking first contact with the humans. His officers watched nervously as their leader stopped at the large viewing window and stared at the 3 human ships floating in space. Show me the scans again, he ordered. The chief science officer, Zell, activated the main screen. It displayed detailed images of the human vessels with notes about their technology. The outer hulls are made of a material we cannot identify, Zell explained. It can change its properties based on some signal we cannot detect. When they revealed their true technology, our sensors found energy sources that should not be possible for ships that small. Commander Lox pointed to one section of the display. Look at their propulsion system, Your Greatness. There are no visible engines, yet they move with perfect control. And when they demonstrated their speed yesterday, Krav remembered all too well. One of the human ships had accelerated from standstill to faster than light speed almost instantly, circled their entire fleet in seconds, then stopped with no sign of momentum or energy discharge. Could they be using some form of gravity manipulation? Krav asked. Possibly, Zell said, but at a level far beyond our technology. We've been working on gravity drives for 200 years and haven't achieved anything close to what they showed us. The communications officer interrupted. Your Greatness, the human captain is requesting to speak with you again. Krav straightened his ceremonial armor. Put her on screen. Captain Chen appeared, looking calm and friendly. Good day, Emperor Krav. I hope you've had time to consider our suggestion of peaceful cooperation. I have been reviewing your technology, Krav replied. It is unexpected. Chen smiled. We thought it might be. Would you be interested in a demonstration? Nothing threatening, just to help you understand our capabilities. Krav hesitated. The Empire had strict protocols for dealing with new species, but none covered this situation. What kind of demonstration? With your permission, we could send a small transport vessel to dock with your command ship. Our chief engineer could explain some basics of our technology. As a gesture of good faith, the Imperial officers exchanged worried glances. Allowing aliens onto the command ship was irregular, but Krav was curious. Very well, he agreed, but the transport will be scanned thoroughly, and your engineer will be accompanied by guards at all times. Chen nodded. Of course, our transport will approach in 30 minutes. When the screen went dark, Commander Lox moved closer to Krav. Is this wise, Your Greatness? They could be planning something. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so already, Krav replied. Their ships outnumber ours, and their technology is clearly superior. I want to understand what we're facing. 30 minutes later, a small human vessel approached the Eternal Glory. It was barely larger than a shuttle, with a smooth silver surface that seemed to flow like liquid metal. The dock officer reported, Your Greatness, the human vessel is not using our docking protocols. It's passing through our hull shield as if it isn't there. On the security screens, Krav watched as the human transport somehow merged with their ship's hull, creating a perfect seal without using any visible docking mechanism. A single human emerged from the transport. This one had darker skin than Captain Chen and was taller. It wore a simple gray uniform with no visible weapons. Greetings, the human said as Imperial guards surrounded it. I'm Dr. James Wilson, Chief Engineer of the Earth Fleet. Thank you for allowing me to visit. Krav met the human in a secure conference room. Dr. Wilson carried a small case that had been thoroughly scanned but showed nothing dangerous. Your ships have capabilities we've never seen before, Krav said, skipping the traditional Imperial greeting. Explain. Dr. Wilson opened his case and removed a small device. When he activated it, a three-dimensional image appeared above the table, a complex diagram of swirling energy patterns. This represents how we understand space-time, Wilson explained. Your Empire's technology treats space and time as fixed constants with certain rules. We discovered that these rules are actually flexible. He adjusted the device, and the pattern changed. About 300 years ago, a scientist named Eliza Renfield discovered that reality has multiple layers or phases. By shifting slightly between these phases, we can change how physical laws affect us. Commander Lox leaned forward. That's impossible. The laws of physics are universal. Wilson smiled. The basic laws are universal, but how they apply depends on your position in the phase spectrum. For example, he placed a small metal ball on the table. It looked ordinary. Then he pressed something on his wrist device, and the ball rose into the air. I just shifted the ball slightly out of phase with gravity, Wilson explained. It still exists here, but gravity's effect on it is reduced by 99.8%. The Imperial scientists in the room moved closer, their instruments scanning the floating ball. Our phase shift technology lets us control how physical forces affect our ships, Wilson continued. We can reduce inertia to accelerate quickly, shift partially out of phase to avoid weapons, or adjust our interaction with light to become effectively invisible. Krav had never heard of such technology. It violated everything Imperial science had established over thousands of years. If this is true, he said slowly, why would you reveal such secrets to us? Wilson's expression became serious. Because we want you to understand. Humans don't want war with the Empire. We don't want to conquer or be conquered. We simply want to exist peacefully in our corner of the galaxy. He put the ball back in his case. But we also want you to know that forcing us to join your empire would be problematic. Is that a threat? Commander Lox demanded. Not at all, Wilson replied calmly. Just a statement of fact. Your empire has expanded for thousands of years by conquering less advanced species. That approach won't work with us. Krav studied the human carefully. There was no fear in its stance, no sign of deception in its voice. These humans truly believed they could stand against the Empire, and based on what he'd seen, they might be right. Your people developed this technology independently? Krav asked. Wilson nodded. We've been a spacefaring species for only about 400 years. We faced many challenges that forced us to think differently. Our planet has high gravity, so we needed efficient propulsion. We have limited resources, so we had to be creative. Krav found this hard to believe. The Empire has existed for 5,000 years. How could your young species advance so quickly? Wilson smiled again, and Krav realized it was the same expression Captain Chen had shown. That strange upward curve of the mouth that humans made when something amused them. Sometimes, Wilson said, being young has advantages. We weren't limited by thousands of years of established scientific doctrine. We questioned everything. Tried approaches your scientists might have dismissed as impossible. As the demonstration continued, Krav felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, the uncomfortable sensation of being outmatched. The Empire had always been the most advanced civilization, the teachers bringing knowledge to primitive species. Now, roles were reversed, and the humans didn't even seem impressed by their own achievements. They explained complex technologies with casual ease, sometimes even making those strange chuckling sounds when Imperial scientists expressed disbelief. They weren't just technologically superior, they found the situation funny. 3 days after the first contact, Emperor Krav sat in a large meeting room aboard a neutral space station. The humans had suggested this location for cultural talks, halfway between the Imperial fleet and Earth. The room was simple but comfortable, with a large round table in the center. Captain Chen entered with 5 other humans. They wore different colored clothing and carried small devices. Krav noticed how differently they all looked from each other. Some had light skin, others dark. Their hair varied in color and style, and they were different heights. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Emperor, Captain Chen said. We believe understanding each other's cultures is the first step toward peaceful relations. Krav nodded. The Empire has studied thousands of species. We find knowledge useful, even of those who resist integration. Chen smiled at his choice of words. We've prepared some information about human culture and history. We're curious to learn about yours as well. One of the humans activated a device, and images appeared in the air above the table. They showed a blue-green planet with white clouds. Earth is our homeworld, Chen explained. Humans evolved there about 300,000 years ago. Our recorded history spans roughly 5,000 years. The images changed to show ancient human structures, cities, and people dressed in old-fashioned clothing. For most of our history, humans lived in separate nations and often fought each other, Chen continued. It was only about 200 years ago that we united as one planetary government. Krav found this interesting. The Empire united our homeworld 7,000 years ago. Separate nations are inefficient. Perhaps, Chen replied. But that diversity forced us to develop different approaches to problems. When we finally united, we had thousands of cultural perspectives to draw from. The images changed again, showing humans creating art, playing music, and gathering in large groups. Culture and creative expression are very important to humans, Chen explained. We believe art, music, literature, and philosophy make life meaningful. One of the Imperial scientists spoke up. These activities serve no practical purpose. How do they benefit your species? The humans exchanged glances, and several made that strange chuckling sound Krav was beginning to recognize. Not everything valuable has an immediate practical purpose, a human with curly hair replied. Creative thinking led to many of our technological breakthroughs. Our scientists often say their best ideas came while doing something unrelated to their work. More images appeared, humans exploring space, building cities underwater, and what appeared to be virtual reality environments. Exploration and discovery are core human values, Chen continued. We are naturally curious. Our greatest heroes are those who discovered new places, ideas, or technologies. Krav noticed a pattern in the presentation. Your species seems to value change and novelty. The Empire values stability and tradition. We have maintained our core social structure for 5,000 years. That explains a lot, Chen said. Humans tend to get restless with too much stability. We're always looking for improvements, even to systems that work well. Krav found this concept strange. If a system functions correctly, why change it? The humans made the chuckling sound again. That's a very imperial perspective, Chen replied. Humans might say, even if something works well, it could perhaps work better. The cultural exchange continued for hours. The humans explained their diverse religions, their concepts of individual rights, their love of sports and games, and their educational systems. What struck Krav most was how the humans organized their society. The Empire used a strict hierarchy, with each person assigned a role based on their abilities. Humans, by contrast, allowed individuals to choose their own paths. This seems chaotic, Krav observed. How do you ensure everyone performs necessary functions? People tend to find work they enjoy and excel at, Chen explained. And we've automated many basic tasks. Our society values personal choice and freedom. Freedom to do what? Asked Commander Locks, who had been listening silently. Freedom to make one's own choices, Chen replied. To speak freely, to pursue happiness, to live according to one's own values. The imperial officers found this concept difficult to grasp. In the Empire, the collective good always outweighed individual desires. Now, Chen said, we'd like to learn about imperial culture. Krav described the Empire's history, how they had united their homeworld, developed faster than light travel, and began spreading civilization to primitive planets. He explained their social structure, their arts, mostly celebrations of imperial achievements, and their educational system designed to identify each person's optimal role. As he spoke, Krav noticed the humans' expressions changing. They asked polite questions, but he could sense their discomfort. You assign roles to people at a young age, one human asked. They cannot choose a different path later. Why would they? Krav replied. Our tests are highly accurate at determining aptitudes. Each citizen serves where they can contribute most effectively. And species you integrate? Another human asked. They follow the same system. Of course. New species begin at lower tiers and advance as they prove their capabilities. The humans exchanged glances again. Chen leaned forward. Emperor Krav, I need to be direct. What you describe sounds like what humans would call colonization, or even subjugation. On Earth, such systems have led to much suffering throughout our history. Krav was surprised by this reaction. The Empire brings order, technology, and purpose to primitive species. Without our guidance, many would never advance beyond their planets. Chen's voice was calm but firm. That may be true for some species, but humans value self-determination above almost everything else. We would rather make our own mistakes than follow someone else's perfect plan. Now Krav understood why these humans resisted integration. Their entire cultural identity seemed built around concepts the Empire considered dangerous: change, individualism, questioning authority. Your species is unusual, Krav said finally. In 5,000 years, we have integrated thousands of worlds. None have refused the benefits of imperial membership. Chen smiled. Perhaps they lacked the technology to refuse effectively. Or perhaps their cultures valued different things than humans do. As the meeting concluded, Krav realized something profound. The greatest barrier between humans and the Empire wasn't technology, it was philosophy. Humans didn't just have different ships, they had a fundamentally different view of existence. And strangest of all, when faced with the mighty empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, they responded not with fear or awe, but with those peculiar chuckling sounds, as if the very idea of submitting to another's rule was somehow amusing. Emperor Krav stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, surrounded by his highest-ranking officers. 1 week had passed since the first contact with humans. The Imperial Council had sent their decision. The humans must be integrated into the Empire, by force if necessary. The Council does not believe these humans have the capabilities they claim, said High Minister Vex, who had arrived from the Imperial homeworld. They think the humans are using illusions and tricks to appear more advanced. Krav had seen the human technology firsthand. He was not convinced they were bluffing. Minister, I recommend caution. If their technology is real, the Empire does not practice caution when dealing with primitive species, Vex interrupted. We have brought 5 more battle fleets to this system. The humans have 3 main ships and a few hundred smaller vessels. The outcome is not in doubt. On the main screen, the 5 new Imperial fleets moved into attack formation around Earth. Each fleet contained 50 massive warships, bringing the total Imperial force to over 300 vessels. Send the message, Vex ordered. The communications officer activated the channel. Channel opened to human command. Minister. Vex stepped forward. Attention humans. This is High Minister Vex of the Galactic Empire. Your time for consideration has ended. You will submit to Imperial rule immediately. Resistance will result in the destruction of your military forces. You have 1 hour to respond. The screen changed to show Captain Chen. She looked calm despite the threat. High Minister Vex, we are disappointed by this development, she said. We had hoped for peaceful relations between our civilizations. However, if you insist on this course of action, we must decline your offer of integration. Earth will remain independent. Vex made a dismissive gesture. Your defiance is noted. Prepare to witness the power of the Empire. When the communication ended, Vex turned to the fleet commander. Begin the demonstration. Target their moon base with long-range weapons. Emperor Krav stepped forward. Minister, I must object. Based on our observations. Your objection is noted, Emperor. Vex cut him off. But the Council has made its decision. The Imperial flagship aimed its main weapon at the small human base on the moon. The massive cannon charged, glowing with energy, then fired a beam that could split a planet's crust. Everyone on the bridge expected to see an explosion on the moon's surface. Instead, the energy beam hit something invisible in space and scattered harmlessly in all directions. What happened? Vex demanded. The science officer checked his instruments. Some kind of energy field intercepted the beam. Minister, it appears the humans have a planetary defense system we couldn't detect. On the main screen, Captain Chen appeared again without being called. That was unwise, Minister Vex. We have tried to be patient, but it seems a more direct demonstration is needed. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded across the bridge. Multiple energy readings appearing throughout the system. The sensor officer reported. Thousands of them, surrounding our fleet. The view screen showed what was happening. Human ships were appearing from nowhere, surrounding the Imperial fleet in a 3-dimensional grid pattern. Not hundreds this time, but thousands. Where did they come from? Vex asked, his voice losing its confidence. Phase-shifting technology, Krav explained. They exist slightly out of sync with our reality until they choose to fully appear. A new human face appeared on the screen. This one was older, with gray hair and dark skin. This is Admiral Jackson of the Earth Defense Fleet. I'm assuming command of this situation from Captain Chen. Your unprovoked attack on our moon base has changed the diplomatic situation. Vex struggled to maintain his imperial dignity. Your fleet, while surprisingly large, cannot match Imperial firepower. Each of our vessels can destroy a planet. Admiral Jackson nodded. We're aware of your capabilities, Minister. Now let us show you some of ours. He gave an order to someone off-screen. Seconds later, a single human vessel, smaller than even the smallest Imperial warship, moved to the center of the formation. Observe carefully, Jackson said. The small ship began to glow with a blue light. Then, without any visible weapons fire, 10 Imperial warships simply shut down. Their lights went out, and they drifted helplessly in space. "What did you do?" Krav asked. "Targeted phase disruption," Jackson explained. "We shifted their power cores slightly out of phase with their distribution systems. No permanent damage. They can be restarted easily. But as you can see, we can disable your ships without destroying them." The demonstration continued. Another human ship created what looked like small holes in space around several Imperial vessels. When the holes closed, the ships were gone. "Don't worry," Jackson said, noticing the alarm on the Imperial officers' faces. "We've simply relocated them to the other side of your formation. A small demonstration of our spatial folding technology." Vex was speechless. The Empire had never encountered anything like this. Perhaps most importantly, Jackson continued, "We should demonstrate our defensive capabilities." He gave another order, and the main human fleet surrounded Earth in a protective formation. "You may fire your planet destroyer weapons at Earth now," Jackson offered. "Full power." Vex looked at Krav, who shook his head slightly, but the minister was determined to show Imperial strength. "Target the human homeworld," he ordered. "All ships, maximum power." The Imperial fleet fired simultaneously. Hundreds of energy beams powerful enough to crack a planet converged on Earth. But they never reached their target. Halfway to the planet, the beams hit an invisible barrier and simply vanished. Not deflected, not scattered, completely absorbed. "What you just witnessed," Admiral Jackson explained, "is our planetary shield. It doesn't just block attacks, it converts the energy into power for our grid. Thank you for the donation of power." Silence fell across the Imperial bridge. Their most powerful weapons had done nothing. Now, Jackson continued, "Let me be clear. We could disable your entire fleet in minutes. We could teleport your flagship into the center of our sun. We could phase shift your atoms into different configurations. But we don't want to do any of those things." He leaned forward. "Humans don't want war with the Empire. We don't want to conquer you. We simply want to exist peacefully in our corner of the galaxy. But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves if necessary." Vex finally found his voice. "The Empire has ruled the galaxy for 5,000 years. We will not be threatened by a young species, regardless of their tricks." Admiral Jackson sighed. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed, a full, rich sound that echoed across the Imperial bridge. "Minister Vex, we're not threatening you. We're trying to save you from making a terrible mistake. Your empire has become used to being the most advanced civilization in known space. That's no longer the case. The sooner you accept that reality, the better for everyone." 1 month had passed since the demonstration of human technology. The Imperial ships now orbited Earth not as conquerors but as visitors. On the planet's surface, in a large building created specially for this meeting, Emperor Krav prepared to sign a historic treaty. The room was circular with high windows that showed the blue sky of Earth. Representatives from both civilizations sat at a round table made of polished wood. This table shape had been suggested by the humans. No head, no foot, all participants equal. Emperor Krav studied the document before him. In 5,000 years of imperial history, nothing like this had ever happened. The Empire had never signed a treaty with a newly discovered species as equals. They had always conquered, integrated, or destroyed. High Minister Vex had returned to the Imperial homeworld in disgrace. The Imperial Council, faced with undeniable evidence of superior human technology, had reluctantly authorized Krav to negotiate peace. Admiral Jackson entered the room with Captain Chen and several other humans. They wore formal clothing, but without the excessive decorations typical of Imperial officials. Emperor Krav, Jackson greeted him with a respectful nod. "Are you ready to begin the signing ceremony?" Krav made the Imperial gesture of agreement. "I am ready, Admiral. Though I must admit, this situation is unprecedented in our history." Jackson smiled. "Creating new precedents is something humans excel at." The treaty was simple in its terms. The Empire would recognize Earth and all human colonies as sovereign and independent. Humans would not interfere with existing imperial territories. Both civilizations would establish trade relations, cultural exchanges, and share some scientific knowledge. As the leaders prepared to sign, Krav asked a question that had bothered him since the first contact. "Admiral Jackson, there is something I still do not understand. Your technology far surpasses ours, yet your species is much younger. How is this possible?" Jackson considered the question carefully. "I believe it comes down to different approaches to knowledge, Emperor. The Empire built its civilization on stability and tradition. You perfect what works and maintain it for centuries." He paused, looking out at the Earth visible through the windows. "Humans are almost the opposite. We constantly question everything, even our most successful systems. Our scientists are encouraged to challenge established theories. Our greatest rewards go to those who discover something new, not those who perfect what exists." Krav nodded slowly. "During my time here, I have observed this tendency. Your people seem almost uncomfortable with things that remain unchanged." "That's a good observation," Jackson agreed. "We have a saying, 'The only constant is change.' We expect and even embrace it." Captain Chen added, "There's another factor. The Empire expanded by conquering less advanced species and placing them in your existing system. Humans developed in isolation, forced to solve our own problems without outside help." Krav found this insight valuable. The Empire had indeed stopped developing new technologies once they became powerful enough to take what they needed from others. "There is wisdom in your perspective," Krav admitted. "Perhaps the Empire has become too rigid in its thinking." The signing proceeded, with leaders from both civilizations placing their marks on the historic document. As the ceremony concluded, Krav had one more question. "There is another matter that puzzles me. From our first meeting, humans have responded to the Empire with those sounds you make. Laughter, I believe it's called. Even when faced with our fleet, you seemed amused rather than afraid. Why?" Admiral Jackson exchanged glances with his colleagues, and several of them smiled. "That's a perceptive question," Jackson said. "I suppose we found it somewhat funny that the Empire was so confident in its superiority without knowing anything about us. From our perspective, it seemed, well, a bit like a child challenging an adult to a contest without realizing the difference in abilities." Krav was not offended by the comparison. After what he had witnessed, it was accurate. "In human culture," Captain Chen added, "we often laugh when we encounter something that contradicts our expectations. The Empire expected us to be awed and frightened. When we weren't, you didn't know how to respond. We found that gap between expectation and reality amusing." "I see," Krav said, though the concept of finding such situations humorous was still strange to him. After the ceremony, Krav walked with Jackson through a garden outside the building. Earth plants with colorful flowers lined the path, and the blue sky above seemed impossibly wide, after a life spent mostly on ships and stations. "What will you tell the Imperial Council when you return?" Jackson asked. Krav considered this carefully. "I will tell them that the galaxy is larger and more complex than we believed, that there are civilizations beyond our knowledge with technologies we do not understand, and that perhaps, after 5,000 years, the Empire has something to learn from others." Jackson nodded approvingly. "That seems wise." "The Council may not agree," Krav admitted. "Change comes slowly to the Empire." "Then perhaps this is the beginning of a new chapter in Imperial history," Jackson suggested. "One where you learn to embrace change rather than resist it." In the following months, the relationship between humans and the Empire developed in unexpected ways. Human technology experts visited Imperial worlds, helping to improve their systems. Imperial cultural specialists came to Earth, fascinated by human art, music, and philosophy. Most importantly, news spread throughout the Empire about the species that had not feared their mighty fleet. For the first time in thousands of years, Imperial citizens began asking questions. If humans could develop such advanced technology in a fraction of the time the Empire had existed, what did that mean for imperial traditions and methods? 6 months after the treaty signing, Emperor Krav sat in his private chamber aboard his ship, reading reports from across the Empire. Change was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Several imperial worlds had requested permission to adopt human-style education systems that encouraged questioning and innovation. The Imperial Council was divided, with younger members pushing for reforms while older ones tried to maintain traditions. Krav had become an unexpected advocate for change, arguing that the Empire must evolve or eventually face more species like humans. As he finished the reports, Krav found himself making a sound he had never made before, a quiet chuckle. He was beginning to understand why humans laughed when facing the unexpected. Sometimes, when your entire worldview changes, laughter is the only reasonable response.